My name is Paula de Masi, and I'm going to be the Master of Ceremonies at this inaugural session. Before getting started, I'd like to tell you that we have simultaneous interpretation available in Spanish, English, French, and Portuguese. And for those listening in virtually, you can choose your language of preference by going to the bottom of your screen.
On behalf of the Executive Secretariat of the Inter-American Drug Abuse Control Commission, known by its Spanish language acronym CICAD, of the Organization of American States, OAS, I welcome you to CICAD 78th regular session. My name is Paula de Masi, and I will be your MC for the inaugural session. I would like to remind you that we have simultaneous interpretation in English, Spanish, French, and Portuguese. For those joining virtually, you can set the language of your preference at the bottom left of your kudo screen. Sin más preámbulo.
Without further ado, we kick off this inaugural session. I give the floor to Colonel Edward Kraft from Antigua and Barbuda in his capacity of current chair of the Commission.
Madam Master of Ceremonies, thank you very much for the introduction. Your Excellency, Ambassador Albert Ramdin, Secretary General of the Organization of American States, Ivan Marquez, Secretary for Multidimensional Security, Madam Acting Executive Secretary Angela Crowdy, Madam Vice Chair Marta Machado, fellow commissioners, observers, partner organizations, distinguished delegates, heads of units, and staff of CICAD, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant good morning. Buenos dias, bonjour, bonjour. It is my distinct honor to welcome you to this 78th regular session of the Inter-American Drug Abuse Control Commission. In particular, I wish to extend a special welcome to our Secretary General, who is attending his first CICAD meeting. Welcome, sir. Antigua and Barbuda has been deeply honored to serve as chair of CICAD for the past year. It has been a period defined by transition, evolving challenges, growth, and continued commitment to our shared responsibility of addressing the world drug problem in a balanced, cooperative, and evidence-informed manner. During this tenure, the Commission successfully convened 2 regular sessions, CICAD 76 and 77. At the 76th regular session, Commissioners approved the CICAD work plan for 2025, established the working group to review the hemispheric plan of action, and agreed to convene the intergovernmental working group. Deliberate steps to ensure that CICAD remains relevant, responsive, and strategically aligned with hemispheric realities. At the 77th regular session, the Commission approved the annual report of the Executive Secretariat for submission to the OAS General Assembly, reaffirming CICAD's central role within the OAS system. At the institutional level, this period also marked a significant moment for the Organization of American States, particularly for the Caribbean, with the election of the first Secretary General from our region. In May 2025, Antigua and Barbuda was honored to host the OAS General Assembly, where, as chair of CICAD, I had the privilege of presenting the Commission's annual report on behalf of member states. This occasion underscored both the growing contribution of the Caribbean within the OAS and the important role of CCAD within the wider Inter-American system. In implementing the 2025 work plan, CCAD faced notable resource and funding constraints. These challenges did not diminish the organization's effectiveness, but rather underscored the professionalism, adaptability, and resilience of the Executive Secretariat, unit heads, and staff, who continued to deliver technical cooperation and policy support to member states. In keeping with the mandate from the 76th regular session, I worked closely with the MEM unit and other CCAD units to convene the working group for the revision of the Hemispheric Plan of Action. While this work has not yet concluded, the process has been meaningful and firmly grounded in consultation, technical expertise, and shared hemispheric priorities. The discussions and the contributions received to date provide a solid foundation upon which the Commission can continue this important work under the incoming chair. This was a meaningful experience for me, and I look forward to sharing a detailed report later on in this meeting. This period of transition also included the retirement of Ambassador Adam Nam, whose leadership of the Executive Secretariat at a particular time, a sensitive time, merits our sincerest appreciation. Following this transition, leadership of the Secretariat passed seamlessly to the Assistant Executive Secretary, Ms. Angela Crowdy, who assumed the role of Acting Executive Secretary. Ms. Crowdy brings valuable institutional experience, having previously guided the Secretariat during a challenging period prior to Ambassador Nam's tenure. Drawing on that experience, and with the support of unit heads and staff of CCAD, she has ensured continuity and stability during this period of transition. Angela, thank you for once again stepping forward to lead with calm and measured approach. As I conclude my tenure as chair, I briefly return to the call of action issued when Antigua and Barbuda assumed this role, calling for strengthened collaboration, meaningful programs, and practical actions that protect our citizens while promoting resilience and opportunity. Over the past year, 3 principles have been reflected in the work of member states and the Secretariat alike. On behalf of the government of Antigua and Barbuda, I express sincere gratitude for the opportunity to serve. As a small island state, the chairmanship demonstrated that leadership within CCAD is not defined by size, but by commitment. I therefore encourage Caribbean states and smaller countries in Central America to consider assuming this responsibility and to continue shaping policies and programs that reflect their priorities. Finally, I extend heartfelt thanks to the unit heads, Antonio Lomba, Rafael Parada, Amina Kalwiski, Maya Hines, and Adrian Noble, and the entire staff of CCAD for their professionalism and dedication. I'm also grateful to my team in Antigua and Barbuda and to the Antigua and Barbuda mission here in Washington, D.C. for their unwavering support. I wish you all a holy, healthy, and safe Christmas and holiday season, and I look forward to continuing our collaboration as members of this great CCAD community. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel Croft. Es con agrado que le
It is now my pleasure to offer the floor to Madam Angela Crowdy, Acting Executive Secretary of CCAD, OAS.
Colonel Edward Croft, Director of the Office of National Drug and Money Laundering Control Policy, Antigua and Barbuda, representing the CCAD Chair, Dr. Marta Machado, National Secretary for Drug Policy and Asset Management of the Brazilian Ministry of Justice and Public Security, representing the CCAD Vice Chair, Secretary General Albert Ramdeen of the Organization of American States, Secretary Ivan Marquez of the Secretariat for Multidimensional Security, Organization of American States, Honorable CCAD Commissioners and delegations from our member states, representatives of permanent observers to the OAS, members of international organizations, representatives of civil society, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure to welcome you to this 78th regular session of CCAD on behalf of the CCAD Executive Secretariat. Thank you, Colonel Edward Croft, to Antigua and Barbuda for serving as CCAD Chair during the past year, and my gratitude to Dr. Marta Machado and to Brazil, current CCAD Vice Chair, for working closely with the CCAD Executive Secretariat on the organization of this regular session. Our work continues to have an impact in the region, covering institutional strengthening, drug supply reduction, and demand reduction programming, as well as the work within the scope of the multilateral evaluation mechanism results and CCAD's Inter-American Observatory on Drugs. Through over 50 webinars this year, we reached sizable audiences on topics such as the impact of drug use on mental health, on synthetic opioids, alternatives to incarceration in the Americas, and on maritime security held earlier this year in partnership with the Inter-American Defense Board. Given the new dynamic nature of the drug issue, we are continuously working on new initiatives to strengthen the capacity of our member states to address the drug problem, despite serious funding restrictions faced this year. Regarding our projects, allow me to illustrate briefly some salient activities of 2025 which had an impact in our region. Through our institutional strengthening unit, the Drug Courier Project generated valuable information with over 400 prison interviews and law enforcement trainings to prevent, detect, and address individuals being recruited as drug couriers. CCAD also spearheaded the launch of the International Network on Legislation on Drugs in Latin America and the Caribbean, and started working on identifying model legislation on drugs and existing legislative gaps. The Interinstitutional Internship Program on Drugs between Spain and Latin America promoted the exchange of good practices in Spain for 18 professionals from 12 OAS countries, focusing on the development of drug policies at the local level. Looking forward, CCAD will continue collaboration with Italy, with the partners of the Fortali project, on a new public-private partnership in 10 OAS member states, as well as lead a new line of work countering youth recruitment and exploitation by transnational organized crime in the context of drug markets. Thanks to the work of the Gender in the Criminal Justice System and the Igual Drogas projects, diagnostic studies and gender-sensitive protocols were drafted and will be published in 2025. Our supply reduction unit continued advancing regional capacities to detect, disrupt, and prevent illicit drug production and trafficking. Throughout the year, the unit strengthened the capacities of hundreds of counter-drug analysts and investigators, covering legal and operational cooperation against maritime, riverine, and port-related drug trafficking, enhancing regional strategies to address the illicit manufacture and trafficking of synthetic drugs such as fentanyl and MPS, delivering specialized counter-narcotics training for law enforcement personnel throughout the region, including on the investigation and dismantling of criminal gangs involved in illicit drug trafficking, and strengthening public-private collaboration on precursor chemical control and port security. CCAD's Demand Reduction Unit continued its impactful programming. Faith-based organizations play an essential role in the prevention, treatment, and recovery from drug use. For this reason, CCAD has developed a specialized curriculum with both scientific and spiritual approaches that is currently being disseminated. To date, more than 350 people have been trained in the region. This ongoing effort continues to expand, helping to strengthen a regional network committed to healing and accompaniment. The CCAD Students Against Destructive Decisions pilot program made substantial progress, expanding to the Bahamas, Grenada, Guyana, St. Kitts and Nevis, Suriname, and Trinidad and Tobago. Awareness-raising efforts have been enhanced among Caribbean juveniles through the Youth Forum, promoting youth leadership in drug demand reduction by supporting youth-led prevention initiatives. We will also continue to work with young people, not only in preventing drug use, but also to address the connection with organized crime. The Multilateral Evaluation Mechanism Unit provided support to Argentina as chair of the Intergovernmental Working Group in the preparation of a proposal for the implementation of the MEM's 9th evaluation round in order to adjust to a serious reduction in funding while maintaining its stature as the hemisphere's primary instrument to measure regional progress in addressing the drug problem. Additionally, the team also provided support this year to the CCAD chair and the working group throughout its review and preparation of a new hemispheric plan of action on drugs. The Inter-American Observatory on Drugs, the OID, continued to play a central role in strengthening national early warning systems across the Americas by providing sustained technical assistance, training, and operational guidance. The OID supported the launch of 2 new early warning systems in Guyana and in Mexico, while also strengthening existing and emerging systems in multiple countries through targeted capacity-building activities. The regional meeting of the National Drug Observatories was held last month in the Dominican Republic, which brought together national counterparts to exchange experiences, align methodologies, and strengthen regional coordination on the detection, on the monitoring, and the dissemination of information related to emerging substances, reinforcing the foundations of an integrated hemispheric early warning architecture. All these efforts were complemented this year by the work of CCAD's 4 expert groups: the group of experts on maritime narco-trafficking, chaired by Colombia; the expert group on chemical substances and pharmaceutical products, chaired by Costa Rica; the group of experts on comprehensive and sustainable alternative development, chaired by Colombia; and the demand reduction expert group, chaired by Barbados. CCAD continues to carry out important work in collaboration with civil society organizations and international partners. Throughout 2025, CCAD expanded its collaboration with key international and regional partners to enhance the quality, comparability, and reach of drug-related information systems in the Americas, with, for example, the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, the European Union Drugs Agency, and the European Union's cooperation program on drugs policy between Europe, Latin American, and the Caribbean COPOLAD. We are also working on strengthening international cooperation on social integration among member states with the San Patrignano therapeutic community in Italy through the Foctali project. Likewise, CCAD will continue collaboration with civil society organizations dedicated to demand reduction, for example, with the Latin American Federation of Therapeutic Communities, FLACT. Finally, may I express our sincere gratitude to our current donors, without whom we could not have implemented this year's programming. Specific fund donations continue to account for the vast majority of CCAD's funding. Now more than ever, we are very grateful for specific funds which have allowed us to continue to execute our projects in the region. I look forward to our dynamic and productive regular session over the next 3 days. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Madam Crowdy. Now it's a pleasure to give the floor to Mr. Ivan Contente Marquez, Secretary for Multidimensional Security of the OAS.
Mr. Albert Ramdin, Secretary General of the OAS, Colonel Edward Croft, Director, Office of National Drug and Money Laundering Control Policy, Antigua and Barbuda, Chair of CICAD, Dr. Marcia Machado, National Secretary for Drug Policies and Asset Management and Chief Justice of National Security Brazil, Vice Chair of SAD, Angela Crowdy, Acting Executive Secretary. Commissioners, representatives of permanent missions observing permanent mission to the OAS, representatives of international organizations of civil society, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Perhaps one of the few consensuses we have in the international scenarios that organized crime, transnational organized crime, cannot be fought with go-it-alone national strategies. It has to be fought with by sharing intelligence, coordinating operations, and with clear mandates. From this aspect, our region stands out as a pioneer because it understood this nearly 40 years ago when it created CICAD. Today, while the world seeks out effective models of cooperation against criminal networks that don't make a distinction between drug trafficking, money laundering, trafficking in weapons, and cybercrime, this region continues with a mechanism that has proven to be quite effective with an agreed-upon mandate at the highest political level with high technical know-how and, more than anything, with a thorough commitment to forge ahead in controlling drug use and reining in the negative consequences across the members of the OAS. No one calls into question CICAD happily, while many multilateral organizations are undergoing a reshuffling, restructuring. The question we have to ask ourselves for this CICAD is how can we seize this moment that we find ourselves in to strengthen and accelerate the programs and processes that have already proven to be quite effective every day throughout our hemisphere, bolstering ever the fight against drug abuse and the criminal networks that spur violence in the Americas. With this provocation, I would like to welcome you all to the 78th regular session of the Inter-American Commission Against Drug Abuse. It's very important for me to start by expressing how thankful I am to the government of Antigua and Barbuda for the excellent performance at the helm of this body as the chair of the commission between 2024 and 2025, as well as heading up the working group charged with updating the hemispheric plan of action on drugs. Colonel Croft, it was a pleasure to work with you. At the same time, I extend my gratefulness to the government of Brazil for its commitment and dedication as vice chair of CICAD over this time period, as well as those countries that have headed up the group of experts on CICAD on maritime drug trafficking, alternative development, comprehensive alternative development and sustainable development of chemical substances, precursors, and pharmaceutical products, demand reduction, especially Costa Rica, Colombia, and Barbados. This is a meaningful moment this year for CICAD, given the drafting of the plan of action for drugs as we move into the next round of the multilateral evaluation mechanism, MEM. The hemisphere-wide strategy against drugs is among the most important documents produced over the last decade in the region, serving as a basis for effective policies that are evidence-based in our countries. I would like to recognize the effort put forward by all of the countries who took part in the talks around this new plan of action, as well as the work carried out by the government of Argentina in its capacity as the chair of the Intergovernmental Working Group. A new round of MEM that we are thinking of kicking off next year bolsters the strategic role of this mechanism, which bears mentioning was born of a mandate of the Summit of the Americas, and to that effect, this mechanism goes beyond a mere technical exercise. It is also a collective tool enabling countries to gauge progress, to identify challenges, and to bolster their public policies against drugs. In approving the beginning of this new round, the member states reassert their commitment to transparency, cooperation, and building hemisphere-wide responses that are ever more effective as we tackle this world drug problem that has become that much more complex. Lastly, I I was on an official mission in Spain and France and had the opportunity to speak with a number of law enforcement agencies in those countries, because they are not, just as other nations, they are not only dealing with trafficking in cocaine and other drugs, but a more diverse criminal economy. They also traffic in people and weapons, launder resources, exploit illegal mining, and carry out cyber crime. They're highly adaptable. They exploit institutional weaknesses, and they corrode the integrity of governments, and this has a direct impact on the well-being and the safety of populations, making it that much harder to tackle. Now, the multidimensional Security Secretariat continues to strengthen security mechanisms through dialogue and cooperation with member states, as well as with permanent observers of the OAS. Our purpose is to assist member states to tackle these criminal organizations, and not just by hitting their weak links, but through intelligence strategy, interoperability, and policies that at the same time will address the harm caused by crime and drug trafficking. Our mission is to make sure that the hemispheric response be coordinated, innovative, integrated, to the benefit of all of us. These efforts would not be possible were it not for the essential support offered by our partners who finance these undertakings, to whom I am deeply grateful for their contributions, which have been essential to ensure the ongoing nature of our projects and initiatives throughout the region. Now, when I first started speaking, I threw out the question about the importance of our seizing this moment to speed up what we already know that we should be doing. And the answer is in our hands. This 78th session is an opportunity for us to show that indeed CICAD is not only relevant and germane, it's essential, it's active, and it's a coordinated response at a time that the world needs just that. I wish for to all of you the best of success at this regular meeting, CICAD. I believe wholeheartedly that these meetings will contribute meaningfully to forge ahead in the implementation and carrying out concrete results that are sustainable.
Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. Continuing on with the agenda, it's a pleasure to offer the floor to Madam Marta Rodriguez de Assis Machado from Brazil in her capacity as CICAD Vice Chair.
Good morning, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Alberto Rondin, Secretary General of the Organization of American States, Ivan Contente Marquez, Secretary of the Secretary for Multidimensional Security of the OAS, Angela Crowd, Acting Executive Secretary, Colonel Croft, Director of the Office of National Drug and Money Laundering Control Policy, and I congratulate you for your deft handling of this prior session. Colleagues, we come together at a time of deep global uncertainty. Our societies face overlapping challenges, threats to safety, economic pressure, technological transformations, environmental pressures, and the fragmentation of society. In this very complex scenario, those dynamics related to drugs and illegal economies are not happening in isolation of each other. They interact with broader challenges to governance, and they put to the test our collective ability to respond in an effective, balanced, and sustainable way. That is why CICAD continues to be so important. It is one of the few venues in our hemisphere in which different viewpoints, institutional traditions, and public policy approaches can all coalesce, not to eliminate differences, but to find commonalities. Cooperation in today's world is not only desirable, but it is absolutely necessary. There is no country, regardless of its wherewithal and its experience, can tackle these challenges alone. We believe that effective policies against drugs call for a broad perspective, a vantage point that takes into account law enforcement, police intelligence, and international cooperation, at the same time that it understands that long-term security can only be built through prevention, institutional strengthening, and states' ability to respond to concrete realities that their communities face. Experience has shown that policies that are evidence-based, proportional, and that make use of intersectoral coordination tend to be more resilient and effective in the long run. These challenges are reflected in this very bold agenda for CICAD, and I would like to congratulate the chair for the excellent work he has done, the executive secretary's team, and the devotion of each one of the member states. The talks that we are carrying out here include new substances and early warning systems, prevention among young people, maritime drug trafficking, intelligence, technological innovation, as well as sustainable alternative development. These topics reflect a shared understanding. Challenges tied to drugs are ever-changing, and our response to them also need to evolve. Flexibility, innovation, openness for us to learn from each other are essential features of CICAD. Now, let's respect each other and be open in our comments and move together. The challenges we tackle are complex, but our ability to tackle them collectively is exactly what brings us together and strengthens us. As we work together, hearing from each other, building bridges, and the ongoing search for safer, more resilient societies with positive perspectives for everyone in the hemisphere. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Madam Machado. And to wrap up, it's an honor to give the floor to Mr. Secretary General of the OAS, Mr. Albert Ramdin.
Good morning to all. First of all, the Director of the Office of National Drug and Money Laundering Control Policy of Antigua and Barbuda, and the Chair of CICAT, Colonel Edward Croft, also our outgoing Chair. Thank you very much for your service. The National Secretary for Drug Policies and Asset Management of the Ministry of Justice and National Security of Brazil, and Vice Chair of CICAT, Ms. Marta Rodriguez de Assis Machado, incoming Chair, distinguished national authorities and experts of CICAT, permanent representatives and permanent observers present, Secretary for Multidimensional Security, Ivan Marquez, Acting Executive Secretary of CICAT, Angela Crowdy, representatives of international and regional organizations, civil society representatives, dear colleagues and guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to start by thanking the chair of the Inter-American Drug Abuse Control Commission, Antigua and Barbuda's representative, Colonel Edward Croft, for the excellent work which you have carried out over the past year. As you have mentioned, many things have been achieved and a lot of work still needs to be done. So that call remains as valid as when you took office. So thank you very much for your support. I want to also wish all the best and success and congratulations to the incoming chair of Brazil. Let me at the start also acknowledge the work carried out by the Executive Secretary of CICAT, represented today by its Acting Executive Secretary, Angela Crowdy, and her team, as well as the OAS Secretariat for Multidimensional Security as a whole. And of course, we hope that soon we will have not only acting executive secretary, but someone who is fully fledged on board as chairman, as executive secretary of CICAT. Ladies and gentlemen, next year CICAT will mark its 40th anniversary. That is 4 decades of this Commission's working to address one of the most complex challenges, multifaceted, facing our hemisphere. Drug trafficking as part of international and national organized crime, and its wide-ranging implications for state resilience, institutional trust, public safety, and above all, to our youth in our societies. Since its creation in 1986, the Commission has been, and I believe also continues to be, the most relevant forum for addressing the drug problem in our region, while also serving as a point of reference for regional and global debates. I must say that the relevance of this multilateral framework demonstrates the value of this organization as an intergovernmental body. The value of the Organization of American States is one of the functions where lots of success has been achieved, and we need to continue working together. I'll come back to that. I witnessed this function firsthand 12 years ago as Assistant Secretary General when the Organization of American States published the report on the drug problem in the Americas, a report that served as both a starting point and a necessary document for the discussions that took place during the special session of the United Nations General Assembly in 2016. This document included a scenarios report that examined 4 possible paths the drug phenomenon could take in the hemisphere, offering reflections and projections for the period 2013 to this year, 2025. So, very relevant to take care of it and see where we are after 12 years. One of these scenarios was never intended as a model for action, but it was a warning. And I think we should, again, look at that. It showed what might happen if our diversity of approaches turned into fragmentation, and if we lost the capacity to act together as a region. That warning remains as relevant today as it was in 2013. We must understand the need for, and we must adopt, as mentioned before by previous speakers, a common approach, a united approach to tackle collectively this crime against humanity, because it's in the interest of our societies, of the stability in our societies, and of our national security. The problems in our Americas persist, and in many places has intensified. Criminal organizations have innovated and diversified their production, their routes, and their methods. Whenever possible, they attempt to penetrate state institutions that weaken the systems of accountability that sustain democratic life. More than a security problem alone, it is also a profound governance challenge in many countries. In some localities, drug trafficking groups are developing state-like capabilities with their own system of rules, taxation, and social assistance. The impact is the same everywhere. The legitimacy of the state is weakened, in some cases absent, while citizens become more distant from public institutions and the social contract policies. The human cost is also severe. The region continues to experience high levels of violence associated with organized crime and drug trafficking. The exact numbers vary by country and year, but it is well established that drug-related violence and overdoses in the Americas have at times produced higher annual loss of life than some contemporary civil conflicts in other parts of the world. Not a good statistic, you will agree. So while many are affected by drug trafficking in a hemisphere marked by inequality, those who suffer the most are consistently the most vulnerable ones. Families in marginalized communities bear the burden of violence and loss of opportunity. Young people confront limited prospects, Small farmers and local producers face coercion and instability, all leading to migration, forced migration. The issue of drugs is a complex and transnational phenomenon. It crosses borders, adapts quickly, and exploits every weakness in our institutional and social fabric. For this reason, it must find the countries of the Americas united with an hemispheric strategy to confront it. No state, regardless of its size or capacity, can confront this threat alone. We need to work together. Our hemispheric strategy must situate the drug problem within a broader multidimensional security approach. Because corruption, impunity, and political weaknesses do not occur in isolation. They feed one another, and organized crime reinforces all three whenever it can. This is why the Organization of American States framework considers, alongside drugs, terrorism, transnational organized crime, and other threats to public and citizen security together. We aim at supporting states in building the resilience needed to prevent, respond to, and recover from emerging risks while safeguarding democratic governance and the well-being of us in our societies, recognizing that security, legitimacy, and development are interdependent. Recently, following visits to several countries dealing with transnational organized crime, I suggested that member states, and you may want to take this on board here as well, that member states may want to consider embarking on a discussion to create a new legal framework of addressing the drug problem, in which law enforcement is afforded more tools and capabilities to fight the criminal organizations with due regard for human rights. But I think we need a new legal framework to be able to do that more effectively. Otherwise, this battle will remain an unequal one, and we will always be behind those criminals. Ladies and gentlemen, in the Americas, we are one society, and we need to work constructively together to overcome our shared challenges. So as we look toward CICAD's 40th anniversary next year, I'm confident that the work ahead will reaffirm that this Commission has always been the Hemisphere's essential forum for addressing the drug problem together. With a shared commitment to dialogue, to evidence, and to our citizens' well-being, we will continue to build that path. The OAS continues and stands ready to support and defend our democracies with all tools available. I therefore not only wish you a productive session, but I look forward to the innovative approaches which you may want to consider here and give new energy and life to the next 40 years of CICAD. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Secretary General. Con estas palabras damos.
Now, with those words, we conclude the inaugural session. Before starting with the first plenary session, I would like to remind the delegates in the member states who are taking part, both remotely as well as in person, that if they would like to speak, if you would like to speak, request the floor through the Kudo platform in the room. You have screens at your chair, and you just push on the button that says request to speak, and that's how you request the floor, after which you will be given the floor by order of having requested it. So this is the time for interventions by civil society, by permanent sessions, for the 6th plenary session, rather, on 18th of December at 2:30 in the afternoon, DC time, taking into account that the time may change according to how quickly we move along. Now, those who have already spoken, please send an email to me to pdem or pdemasi @ OAS.org to be added to the list. would like to give the floor to Colonel Croft to kick off the first plenary session.